Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for all of you being here. I'm super excited to be here with my dear friend, Cindi Gertz, and we will have a phenomenal conversation. First of all, my name is Lydie Ometto, and I am a physical therapist, a yoga therapist, in the middle of several other beautiful things that I do to support women and the love of them into connecting to their place of courage, intuition, and joy. And definitely I do that with the diving into the understanding of our inner and outer nature. But today I'm super extra excited because we both, Cindi and myself, we co-authored this beautiful book that we will keep for a second interview to talk a little bit more, or to a third interview to talk a little bit more about it in details. So now today we will do a phenomenal conversation into about midlife and menopause and how not to get your ass kicked emotionally, physically, mentally through the change. And how we're gonna go diving into this interview is through the beautiful sharing of Cindi. So I'm gonna pass the voice to her for her to share a little bit about herself prior for us to connect it with a deeper level conversation.
Oh, thank you so much, Lydie, for your beautiful introduction. And I'm just so grateful that through the book of Awakening the Divine Feminine, we have become friends and we have gotten to know each other. And it's going to be fun to interview you down the road too. But for those of people who don't know me and are watching this today, I like to refer to myself as a midlife midwife. And that's because my passion really has become, like you, Lydie, supporting women in midlife, and especially women going through the changes and challenges of menopause. And this is a time of life that has, largely been overlooked, undervalued, underappreciated. And, it's really important to me that we change the legacy around this for ourselves individually and our families and for our culture. And so I have been working with women for a little over 20 years. I started out as a yoga teacher, and what has really evolved into is creating a program for women that I call the Vibrant Woman Program. And as part of that, I have 2 courses that I'm going to tell you a little bit more about today in our conversation, I hope. So, and they're all centered around going through the change as our grandmothers referred to it, right? The change of menopause. So nowadays, I bring yoga into what I do, but I like to work with women individually and to bring them together into sisterhood. So I lead a lot of different women's circles.
Thank you, Cindi. So I am very curious, and I'm sure that the audience is curious too. How did you, I can venture to say, how did you fall in love in supporting this time of our lives, the change? How did you fall in love with the pre-menopause, menopause, and postmenopause time that you support so well the women at your circles?
Yeah, that's such an interesting question. And I wrote about some of it in the book, my journey, the magic of midlife and rest. And the way that I came to this was, through my own experience of burning myself out in my late 20s and early 30s and needing to learn how to let go and to rest more and to create balance in my life. Because I was doing what I call the 3 Ps. I was constantly pushing, pleasing, and perfecting. And I was really driven and work-oriented. And, I had a crisis where I was put on bed rest, and I tell about the details of that in the book and in my story. And what I've realized, one of the beautiful parts of writing that story this last year was that I was able to see my complete journey. And what I realized is that over the years of teaching yoga, women in midlife were kind of naturally drawn to me, even though that's not who I was focusing on. I would look at the makeup of my classes, and they were mostly women in their 40s and 50s. And now that I'm in my 50s, I can look back and see how they were drawn to me. And, a little over 10 years ago, it came to me that that is what I really wanted to focus on, because I realized that when we get into what I call the sandwich years, where you're nurturing a family, you're nurturing your career, uh, eh, you might be managing the home, you might be taking, as a woman, we still kind of take on the majority of that responsibility, and then also caring for aging parents. And most of the women that I know are also contributing into their communities in a volunteer capacity. And even you and I, even though we have businesses and we get paid for that, we're very generous people. And much of what we do, so that it's accessible to everybody, we offer for free, like this interview today, right? And so there's these sandwich years. And what I realized is, when you put perimenopause and menopause on top of everything that's going on when you're in your 40s and 50s, it's completely overwhelming. And if you're already burned out, then everything you're experiencing is just going to be heightened. And the title of this conversation, How Not to Get Your Ass Kicked. And that's when you get your ass kicked. So I got my ass kicked when I was, like I said, late 20s, early 30s. And so I became very passionate about, I've always been passionate about cycles. In fact, I was recording my menstrual cycles when I was in my 20s. I was tracking them, and I was just compelled to do it. I didn't know why then, but I was. And so that's where that passion comes from, is helping women to not be burned out, number one, and especially when they go into menopause, to be able to go in to menopause with vibrancy, with ease and grace and confidence and strength, and all of those qualities. There's many more that I'm not going to list right now that we cultivate in my Vibrant Woman program, in my year-long program.
That's beautiful.
Thank
So,
you.
Cindi, I can see how passionate you are with this subject. It's beautiful. I have a question that I hear from a lot of women, especially you mentioned that you were connecting to your cycles when you're 20. So you always had the passions to connect it to your physicality and connect it to what's going on in your body. And a lot of people, they don't have that drawn from an early age. And I hear all the time women asking, I'm not sure when I am premenopause, and I'm not sure what menopause is. So can you share a little bit details how someone can, between quote, identify that they are starting to go into the change?
That is such a great question. Okay, so perimenopause means around the time of. And this can be a quite short time or a quite lengthy time for women. Like, you'll hear some women say, oh, I just breezed through the change. But 75% of women don't just breeze through the change. That's kind of the minority. And so peri means around, and it means that, and I'm not going to use the word symptoms because I don't like that word. Menopause for most women is a very natural process. Unfortunately, some women go through a premature menopause or medical menopause, but it's a natural part of our life journey. It is not a medical condition. They shouldn't be called symptoms. I call them discomforts. So these discomforts can happen anywhere, 2 years before you reach menopause, a little bit after, a couple years after, and that whole journey can be 2 to 14 years. So peri means around. Menopause itself means the ceasing of your periods, the ceasing of your cycle and your blood flow. And when you have had 12 consecutive months without a period, that is considered menopause. So perimenopause is the time leading up to it and the time just after it. And that can be anywhere from 2 to 12 or more years. And that's a really long time.
Yeah.
For myself, I've been on the higher end of it. I would say at least a decade. I probably noticed my first hot flash when I was in my early 40s, and I'm 51 now, and I'm 2 years into menopause this past October of 2021, and I'm still having some hot flashes.
Mm, mm. Thank you. And thank you so much for being focused into that word, symptoms and discomforts. I love the way that you brought it up, because it is a flow of life. It's just part of being in this beautiful body, and being in this beautiful planet. It's just like the aging of the trees. They also go through the flows, and it's the same with our bodies. Now, when you mention about the perimenopause discomforts, can you share a little bit what are the most common discomforts for the majority of the people that you see? I know that can fluctuate from person to person, but can you give a little bit of base so our audience can identify a little bit more within their own selves?
Yeah, I really love this question too. Oh, I love all the questions so far. So, here's the way I look at that. Like, there are things that are definitely discomforts that are caused from hormone changes. And then there are things happening with women that I like to break into the levels of our being, like physical experiences, emotional, mental, and spiritual. And so I like to think of it as like our experience, each one of us individually, our experience of going through menopause is like a snowflake, because
Mm,
we have these common discomforts that we could experience, but then add in, your own life experience, your cultural upbringing, all your own chemistry of your unique body, your level of sensitivity, because some people are highly sensitive and other people are not. And and it's like each woman's experience is going to be completely unique because of that, but we will share experiences within that. So some of the common things I hear in terms of physical discomforts are hot flashes for one, and night sweats, sleep disturbances, which can
mm,
lead to sleep deprivation, which is a very, very serious problem, and exhaustion. And there are all kinds of other things that can happen. And I'm going to be very candid in this conversation. And probably at points very graphic. Like, there was a point in my perimenopause when I was referring to my days as 3 or 4 shirt days, because I was sweating so profusely from my armpits and experiencing for the first time ever in my life body odor, that I was
mm.
constantly changing my shirts. In fact, I would keep one in my purse or my backpack with some wipes and deodorant wherever I went. so I mean, these are real things that uh alter the functioning of our regular everyday life, that people just don't realize women are going through these things,
Yes.
or if you're bleeding heavy, that's another symptom. Sometimes women can develop fibroids during perimenopause, which more often than not will resolve once you reach menopause, but
Mhm.
they're uncomfortable. Sometimes they're big enough that you can feel them. They can cause heavy bleeding, and I went through this too. And then you're afraid to leave your house or you're afraid to wear light clothes because you don't know if you're going to have an accident or not. And these are some of the real physical things that women go through. And then emotionally, there's the swings. Like I used to talk with a friend who's about 10 years older than me early on in my perimenopause journey, and we were comparing stories. And I would always say to her, why does it feel like I'm being sucked backwards through the vortex of puberty? You know, my face was breaking out. I had body odor, and I was all over the place with my emotions, especially anxiety. Like I had never had anxiety in my life before, and then all of a sudden I could just kind of like feel it. It was like somebody was coming up behind me, and I felt the creepy crawlies going up my back. So one of the things I teach women about is body awareness, and how to tune in to kind of these subtle things that are happening, like that, and the cycles of them, like they change. Sometimes we experience certain discomforts for a season, and then all of a sudden I was in a new season, a different season, and I was experiencing different things.
Yeah.
And so anxiety is one of the big ones, depression, feeling a sadness, because I like to think of our menstrual cycle as a friend that we've had for a very long time, a rhythm that we can count on, that, and then that goes away, and there's
Mhm.
sadness and a loss in that, as much as there is relief and celebration of, okay, this is over. I don't have to worry about getting pregnant anymore. I don't have to worry about planning my life around my cycle anymore. And I'm free, in a sense,
Yes, yes.
and you become more sexually free too, because you don't, if you're, depending on what kind of birth control you're using or not using, there's so many things to think about, and there's so much energy to hold around it. And so our brain actually changes when we're going through menopause. And another thing that I hear women say is, I can't concentrate. I feel foggy all the time.
Mhm.
I'll be thinking of something that I want to go into the next room for, and by the time I get there, I've forgotten what it is. I don't know how many women can relate to that one. Oh, and then there's spiritual awakening. So this could look like, it could be a crisis or an awakening where you're questioning your connection to spirit, or you're deepening it in some way, or you're opening up to the divine feminine, or maybe all of a sudden you become way more intuitive than you ever were. And I think I mentioned puberty earlier. This is my own personal opinion and belief. I think there's something very special about these two phases of life that we go through, where our intuition is much stronger, um, or we're more open to it. Maybe we're more receptive to it. I'm not sure which one it is. Maybe it's both, right? So intuition and creativity, having creative bursts, because all of that energy that we had that was flowing into our reproduction, which is a creative process inherently, right? It now can flow in new directions. And so women find that, things that they were putting on the back burner for years that they had a passion for are coming to life again.
Yes. Wow, Cindy, thank you so much for this beautiful overview.
Yeah,
And it's amazing that how you brought it up, and that brought me a question in heart. And because for me, my experience is that for me was the hardest thing for me was emotionally. And I definitely had a huge shift spiritually during my shift in menopause. And for me, I love to say that's now is my wisdom keeper ears, so that time where the wisdom is coming differently. And I feel that that can be connected to all the women from the the ages of young and mother and motherhood and connecting to the house, and then having that shift, that there's so much that has changed, and they are more withdrawn in themselves and reconnected to who they are in such higher levels, and how is their connection to the world. And that's so beautiful. Now my question to you is, since you went through so many amazing avenues, how do you support them? Do you support them through yoga? How do you support them to really navigate through the change so they do not get their ass kicked?
Right. Ah, that was really beautiful what you just said. And before I answer that question, I just want to say that crone is not a dirty word. It's a
Mhm.
beautiful celebration. And when I was talking about all of the different discomforts we might have, what's coming to me is it's like not all these negative things are always happening. There are some really beautiful things. So that's the part of the journey that I think has been overlooked, is that this is a time of celebration and initiation
Mm.
into the rest of our lives. And so that's really what I'm helping women understand. So what I'm teaching them through the practice of restorative yoga and gentle active yoga, which is what I do more one-on-one with women in my circles. We tend to focus more on restorative yoga and a lovely flow of poses called the Moon Salutation that was created back in the late 1980s at the Kripalu Center by 4 senior women teachers who created this. It was created by women for women.
Mm.
So this is what I teach other women. I become very passionate and focused on that. And through that, what I'm trying to teach women is how to be more aware of their body and what's happening in it, how to tap into their intuition, and then just some very practical tools to get through or to take the edge off some of these things that are ass kicking.
Mhm.
So what I like to teach women, especially, we'll go back to those sandwich years again, women who are sandwiched in these middle years and feel like they don't have any time for themselves, and this was how I felt too, is that I like to teach short, practical tools that women can kind of work into their everyday life, whether they're at home or in the boardroom. And let's say they have a hot flash, or they have kind of like that heart palpitation and the anxiety comes up, or some people will have a little bit of nauseousness just before they have a hot flash. So I teach women how to tune into these things, but then also how to kind of take the edge off in just little snippets, in little short
Mm.
snippets of self-care, until they can carve out and learn how to carve out larger chunks of time for themselves. So I think of myself as a midwife, because I had a midwife and a doula when I had my second baby at home. And I have 2 grown children now, a teen and one in college in his 20s. And what I remember most is, like, yeah, the midwife had some very practical tools that she shared with me about how to get through carrying a baby, labor, birthing, all of that. But also they're there for encouragement,
Yes.
and accountability and cheerleading. um, and so that's kind of how I see myself helping women and bringing us together into a sisterhood, because those of us who've passed in to the crone years, and as you called I loved your phrase, a wisdom keeper,
Mhm.
and I like to say a wise way shower.
Mhm.
It's up to us to lift up the younger women and to bring them into the fold and to show them how this is a celebration, because we celebrate getting our menses, we celebrate our fertility, we celebrate birth, and we don't celebrate the death of things. And menopause is a death of our physical cycle, but it is a birthing or a rebirthing of ourselves on so many other levels.
Mm.
It's a celebration, and it's an initiation into the rest of our lives, which can be really rich and full
Exactly.
and long.
Yeah. Thank you so much for bringing that point, Cindy. And it brings to me how so many other cultures, like either the American Indian culture or the native of South America, or even the natives of Europe, old Europe, how they would celebrate, and the women in that crone stage, that wisdom stage, they would be the grandmothers, they would be the abuelas, they would be the shamans, they would be the supporters for the community. So I feel that it's what you do is a beautiful work, because so many people here and we can say in this country, let me live in this country, they feel alone when it comes to that time, rather than being the supporter of others. Many times they feel alone. So by gathering women into your circles, into your community, is beautiful, because it reminds them and reminds all of us how important community is in all stages of life, but especially in this stage that there is some, like you mentioned before, death of a particular flow that we knew so well, but a rebirth of something new, and how important it is to be in community, to embrace that celebration with other women.
Yeah.
So that's beautiful.
Yeah, thank you so much for bringing that up, how other cultures treat women who are aging. I think that's so important. I have such a deep appreciation, which I'm seeing now, I share with you, for those cultures and the way they treat their elder women. And that's so inspiring. And I think it's something we can aspire to, and that's part of why I'm so passionate about this and about this topic of menopause and the crone years.
Yeah, thank you. Now, is there anything that you can give to the to our beautiful audience here that they can utilize today, like a little snip of something? And that would be beautiful if you can do that for us.
I do. Of course, I want to share with everybody what I have coming up as well. But in the moment, anxiety is heightened right now. So not only are we as women going through perimenopause and menopause, but there's all kinds of things happening in the world. So like the pandemic, for instance, and politics and everything that brings up for women. I don't really care about all the details of that stuff and what people believe. I care about helping them with their self-care and helping them stay grounded. And so much is up right now that if you're in menopause, probably your anxiety is just being exacerbated right now. Like it's probably through the roof, right? And so if that's true, I hope this tip that I'm going to give you today, this one little tool, will be really helpful. So what I focus on in my circles a lot are mudras and breathing and restorative yoga poses. So one thing that you can do anywhere you are, except for maybe when you're driving a car because you want to keep your hands on the wheel, are mudras, right? So anything else, you can probably pause what you're doing, unless it's going to cause harm, and you can practice a mudra. So if you feel that hot flash coming on, or that little twinge of anxiety or nausea or heart palpitation, you could practice the Adi mudra. So anybody who's watching this right now, before I show you how to do it, I'm just going to invite you to notice what's in your body right now. Like some of what I said might have brought some things up for you, right? So just notice the sensations you're feeling in your body. Notice what you're feeling in your heart. Notice kind of where your thoughts are. They might be kind of swirling right now because, we've been talking about so much, and maybe something you've learned is new. I had somebody in my program last year who said, well, I thought I knew a lot about this already, but I was so surprised at how much more I learned. So it could be stirring up thoughts, feelings, physical sensations, right? So good or bad, whatever they are, we're not going to label them. Just notice. And when we do mudras or hand gestures, what they do is they activate some of the energy points in the body. And so I really love the Adi mudra for grounding. And when When we're feeling anxiety, we tend to get up here in our head. And what we want to do is get back down in our body. And we want to ground ourselves and calm our energy. So notice what you're feeling before you do the mudra. Now, I hope everybody can see me. I'm going to lift my palm up. I do this with both hands, but I'm just going to show you one at a time. And I want you to pay attention as you do this with me to the shifts and changes you feel in your body. I've done this so much, I'm already tuning in, like just thinking about doing this mudra, I can feel my energy shifting. But if you're doing it for the first time, it might not be that obvious. So really, really pay attention. And then bring your thumbs of both hands into your palms. And then gently close your fingers over your thumb. And do that with both hands. Keep noticing what's happening. Notice changes in your body sensations, your breathing, your heartbeat, the thoughts in your mind. And then the next step is to take your hands knuckles down and then bring them down to your thighs. Slowly, keep breathing as you do, and notice what you're feeling in your body. And when the knuckles come in contact with the thighs, just let your awareness shift down with it and keep noticing. And notice in particular where you're softening. See what you can let go of. Maybe you felt a change in temperature too. I did. Everything just cooled down. And that is a short couple-minute practice. In my circles, I'll teach you how to incorporate breathing into that. There's all kinds of different breathing you can do with your mudra. You can incorporate your mudras into postures that you're doing. So yeah, I noticed just a complete, kind of like I don't even know how to explain it, like a shifting, especially in my belly, of the energy just moving down towards the earth. Do you want to share what you experienced, Lydie? Because I saw you doing it with me.
Absolutely. I love mudras. And for me, it was also dropping any tensions from my shoulders and any heaviness. It was almost like a washing out, down, and almost like, how can I say, a soothing blanket, energetic blanket. So I love it. Thank you so much.
That's a great visual. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, washing down and an energetic blanket. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And
it is beautiful how just we can choose to shift in the moment, right? So in that moment of craziness and mind going everywhere, we can choose to take a pause and just ease off. Like you said, connect it to the body, know what's happening, and then gently do something about a breath, a connection with the hands, just a moment, and how we can shift state.
yeah, it does take just a moment. And I like to tell women, like, if you're in a business meeting and you feel that anxiety or hot flash coming on, you have that's accessible to you right then and there. If you're a mom at home with kids, you can do it too. And they're probably going to lean in. Kids are always curious about something new. They're going to be like, what's mom doing? You're modeling for your kids when you do these things at home, even if they're just in little short snippets.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So I know that our time is coming up to a completion here, Cindi. So I would love you to, if you can give a bit more how people can get to connected with you, being through the circles, being through the one-on-one, and how they can dive into your beautiful wisdom and be part of this amazing community.
Yeah, thank you, Lydie. This has gone by so fast. I feel like we've just touched the tip of the iceberg. So I have I call it a weekly snippet love letter that goes out to my community. It's called the Joyful Journey Weekly. And the URL for that is a mouthful. So I know we're going to put it in the notes and in the emails and posts that we put out. But that's one way to stay connected. And my intention with that weekly love letter, I call it, is to keep it short, but also to teach a little something, to be uplifting, and to inspire a shift in you. So that's once a week. And that's a really great way to find out what I have going on and what I have coming up, because I also talk about those things. Sometimes there will be, for instance, I have a series coming up called Not Your Mother's Menopause. And I'd love to share a little bit more about that. And I'll be talking a little bit more about that in the Joyful Journey Weekly. And then also for people who are interested, they can receive some extra emails about that. So is it okay if I keep going and talk about
Yes,
the series I
absolutely.
have coming up?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so, and this is my gift for everybody today. Okay, so uh, this is a 3-part series where you will learn why it's so important to create an empowered approach to menopause, what the 4 keys to having an inspired journey are, and how to shift that legacy as individuals, as families, as a culture around the change from one of being misunderstood, of being in isolation and invisibility, to one of celebration and to initiation, as we spoke about earlier, into the rest of our lives and wise womanhood. So I spoke about earlier who this could be for. We talked about how to know when you're in perimenopause or menopause. So it's definitely for women who are in the fires of perimenopause, experiencing hot flashes, sleep disturbance, sleep deprivation, anxiety, those emotional ups and downs, overwhelm, foggy thinking, or you feel that you're in some kind of a spiritual crisis or awakening. It is also for postmenopausal women who might still be experiencing some of those discomforts, or who, for whatever reason, didn't have a chance to experience or process their transition. So a woman, for instance, who had a medical menopause, for what, there's various reasons. Sometimes that happens with women who are going through cancer, or they have a hysterectomy. So, and it happens suddenly, and you don't have the chance to have that experience of that unfolding of the journey. It's for those women too, to kind of go back and have a do-over. And it's also for women in menopause who want to know how to stay healthy and strong reproductively and sexually. We didn't even get to that topic yet, but there's things like, what do I do if I'm 2 years into menopause and I start bleeding like I've had a period, or other kind of bleeding? And some of it is just like your body having one last natural hurrah, and some of it's not, and you would want to get that checked out. Or the prolapse of organs. And I also had that happen, by the way. So I have personal experience with that. I have personal experience with organs prolapsing. And I'm going to be learning about pelvic PT this year. And I can't wait to share that with women so that they feel empowered. My own mom in her 70s had a removal of her womb because of prolapsed organs. And I helped her through that experience. And it wasn't fun for her. So there are ways that we can keep our bodies strong to kind of minimize that risk. And so I want women who are postmenopausal to be part of this circle too, because they have the wisdom to share, but also because I want them to know what to do if they experience any of these things. And then also sexually, how to have pleasurable sex after you're in menopause, and how to perceive yourself as still a sexually vibrant being. And then it's also for the menopause curious, because in my opinion, it's never too late or too early to learn about what you can expect or how you can heal from your experience. So I think I mentioned that the series will happen over the course of 3 weeks in 3 parts. So each week a video is going to be released. Parts 1 and 2 are pre-recorded, along with maybe an assignment or an article. And what week 1 is about creating that empowered approach. Week 2 is about the 4 keys to an inspired journey. And on the final week, I go live with a Zoom with Not Your Mother's Menopause. So this is a live 90-minute circle. And that includes a preview to Inspired Menopause, which is my other women's circle that's devoted to menopause. So the
So,
series is free. Oh, do you have a question?
yes, I do, Cindi. I want that to be crystal clear for the audience that all this training is all online, correct?
Yes, it is all online. I do work individually with women, and if they're local, they have the choice. But I also work individually with women who live a distance away too. But my group, for the most part, everything I do as a sisterhood circle and groups is all online. So it's accessible from anywhere.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you. And I really appreciate you sharing about your experience with organ prolapse.
Yeah.
By being a PT, I've seen many, many patients and clients with the problem of pelvic floor weakness and prolapse. And this is definitely a really important point into the transition, for a lot of people that experience that even during the perimenopause, but especially for the ones that experience that on the postmenopause. So that's a really beautiful point. Thank you so much for even choosing to dive deeper into your studies of that further on this year, just to bring more to your population. And another thing that I would love to bring it back into the conversation is how important it is us as female to maintain a good connection into our sexuality. Like you mentioned in the beginning, how important it is to explore the creative self. And as we as yoga teachers, we know quite well that the second chakra that's connecting to our reproductive system and so on is the core, is the base of our creativity. And so how important it is to maintain a good understanding and a good body connection with that area of our bodies, and to expand our creativity into this new state of life. So thank you for bringing that up, and congratulations for all the female that are already on the circle with Cindi and the ones that are about to jump into it.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for reflecting that back. And my journey is always evolving. And so as it does, I bring whatever I can from my experience into the circle for a really rich experience. And I have just a few more things to say about Not Your Mother's Menopause, which is coming up, if that's okay.
I love the name.
Yeah, I know. And that's the change of the legacy, right? It's not our mother's or our grandmother's menopause. This is the new legacy we want to create. So this is an introductory series, Not Your Mother's Menopause. It's free for a limited time, and the live component only happens once a year. The recordings will still be available afterwards for a small investment, but I really want people to come into the live component of it because of the richness of the sisterhood in person, and how much connection we have and how much sharing has happened. Like some of the things women have said to me is, I can imagine a whole new way of living, and I feel renewed now and empowered. And I learned so many new ways to care for myself. And particularly women will say, I learned to listen to my body and my intuition. And it has a ripple effect. They say, this is the greatest gift I can give to myself, my family, and my friends. And it helps me make time for myself and space for myself. It helps me to be intentional. And
That's beautiful. And one thing
yeah,
that I can also say, as you have a daughter, uh, is so many women out there that have daughters and granddaughters, how they can also support their flow when the time comes for them for the change. And so that's beautiful because it is that ever flowing support.
right. So I hope for women listening today, if any of this resonated with you, sparked a curiosity in you, or even just triggered you, because I think emotions are information. It
Mhm.
you know, it's not good or bad. It's not wrong to be triggered. But it's telling you something. It's telling you that maybe there's something that you need to pay attention to, or maybe you just have a full body yes, like, yeah, I'd like to know more. I'd like to get involved and stay engaged. And one of my uh, favorite, just a one line feedback from one of my students is, yeah, we need this or we're going to crack. That sums it up. We need this or we're going to get our ass kicked.
Yes, big time, big
Yeah.
time.
So I
And
hope I'll hear from those women if any of that resonated or affected you in any way today as you were listening.
wow, Cindi, there's so much juiciness in this video, and I support everybody to listen and re-listen and re-listen again because there's so much juiciness in it. And thank you so much for bringing your wisdom, for sharing your story, and for sharing all your love for this change in our lives. We are all women and we're all going to go through it. And if we haven't done yet, and thank you for opening up your schedule book also to support more women into this adventure that I really love to call adventure, this adventure of the change.
Yeah, I
Know
like
that it
that.
is an adventure because just like you said,
Yeah.
it is a reason for celebration.
Yeah.
It is a reason for seeing ourselves on the new step of our lives. Who are we now? And that's so beautiful.
Yeah.
It's interesting, like you said, it's not your mother's menopause. And nowadays we can see that women are amazingly productive and offering into society until their 90s and plus. We have so many amazing women there giving and sharing their love and expanding and keep on supporting others. And while many years before now, people would just shut down their lives, close their curtains, and life was done.
Yeah.
While nowadays, we are vibrant, we are alive until it's time to transition to a different realm of existence. And so
Uh,
the beauty is that you are sharing the tools of how someone can choose to be vibrant, can be alive, be feeling good. Yeah. And through the change and beyond. So
yeah. Well said. And I'm just realizing that if anybody wants to go on this adventure with me, I forgot to say where to go to check out my courses. So it's I have to look at my note here. It's courses, period, consciousliving.arts.com. So courses.consciousliving.arts.com. And you'll be able to find Not Your Mother's Menopause there. And whatever else I have going on, it's always evolving. And you'll be able to stay in touch with me through the Joyful Journey weekly. That's another avenue of staying in touch and learning what's going on. And I just want to thank you, Lydie, for holding this space for us today, for your great questions, for your presence, for the conversation around it. And I appreciate it so much. And I'm realizing that I want people to be able to stay in touch with you too. And we're going to go deeper into your story and your journey when we do part 2 of our conversation. So it would be great, I think, if you shared also with people, where they can stay in touch with you, and maybe give them just a little sneak preview of what's coming up, like what your theme and what our conversation is going to be about.
Oh, thank you, Cindi, so much for that. Yes, I'm super excited that we're going to keep with this type of conversation. And, uh, um, and my theme is going to be also connecting to women and women into finding their courage to reconnect it to their joy, if in case they have lost, if they have not lost the joy, to enhance their joy in different aspects of life. I'm passionate about connecting to the cycles of nature and the nature within and the nature around us. So I utilize a lot of the nature being through retreats that I guide people, women, to go into yoga and swim with wild dolphin retreats. I have some different retreats live and some mini retreats online that we connected to the joy of being within our nature and being connecting to the nature around, for us to really remember that we are a precious being, and it's a privilege for us to be in this planet in this moment in time. So how important it is that we care for our bodies, our minds, our feelings, our energetic fields. And so I really connected a lot with reminding people how they can connect to their intuition in order to expand their experience of life. So we will talk a little bit more about it. I also have a little gift for you that we will put the link on the newsletter and also at the end of this video about Cindy's gift and my gift that's about connecting deeper to your intuition. And since we're going to be doing more of this conversation, we would love you to share your questions with us. You can email us. You can send through the Facebook group that Cindi has so beautifully. And so you can connect it with us with your questions. What would you like to know more, maybe in depth about menopause, that we can have a further conversation later on to go in deeper details? What would you like to know in relations to how can me as a woman connect deeper to the levels of nature within myself and the world? How can I connect deeper with my intuition? And how can any questions that you have in relations to health and yoga? And we are super excited to bring that to all of you in further conversations. And as I mentioned in the beginning of this call also, that eventually we will do one specifically about the book, when we can invite some other beautiful sisters to come and share it with us too. So keep in touch with us. Keep your eyes open. There is a lot more that we can bring to you in so many beautiful ways. And so I thank you so much, Cindi, for sharing again your wisdom, your love, your excitement. And as you can see, everybody can see the beautiful smile of Cindi. She's just a big mama that wants to hug everybody and give all the love and care that she can. So if you would like to share something else before we wrap up, that would be beautiful.
Yeah, I would like to say you're welcome and thank you. And I'm super excited to continue this conversation. I share a passion for nature and the natural cycles too. And I just think it's going to be so fun and so interesting to kind of continue that thread, but with a little different focus. And I can't wait. So we'll see everybody back here in a while.
Yay, awesome. Thank you, Cindi. Thank you, everybody. And we definitely will send you all the links and the information. And so keep an eye on your inbox. And also remember, you can share this video to all your friends and families. There's so much juiciness that they can receive from here, and they can be in contact with us too. And that's the way that we create community, yeah, by sharing. So thank you, as we know that sharing is caring. So thank you so much for all your shares, Cindi. And for everybody that's here, thank you for spending this time with us. Much, much, much love. And as we would say, be well, namaste.